Hi everyone, welcome back to World War Map Intelligence, and tonight we are looking at a moment that could redefine the balance of power across the entire Middle East. US-Israel strike Iran. Hormuz crisis explodes as Middle East war spirals globally. What began as a series of covert tensions and shadow operations has now erupted into something far more dangerous, sending shockwaves through oil markets, military alliances, and the fragile security architecture of the world. Reports indicate that coordinated strikes linked to the United States and Israel have targeted strategic Iranian military infrastructure, including missile facilities and suspected command centers believed to be connected to Iran's regional proxy network. These strikes were not random. They appear designed to cripple Iran's ability to project power across the region, particularly through the Persian Gulf and the critical Strait of Hormuz, a narrow maritime corridor through which nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply flows every single day. Within hours of the reported attacks, Iran's leadership issued fierce warnings, declaring that any assault on its sovereignty would trigger consequences across the entire region.
To the west
and those consequences may already be unfolding. Iranian naval forces and Revolutionary Guard units have reportedly increased their presence around the Strait of Hormuz, raising fears that Tehran could attempt to disrupt or even temporarily block the waterway, a move that would instantly send global energy prices soaring and could trigger an international military response. For decades, the Strait of Hormuz has been considered one of the most strategically sensitive choke points on Earth, and any instability there has the potential to ripple across the global economy within hours. Meanwhile, Israel has placed its air defenses and military forces on the highest level of readiness, anticipating retaliation not only from Iran itself, but from allied groups across the region, including forces in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Hezbollah, the powerful armed movement in southern Lebanon, closely aligned with Tehran, has already signaled that it is closely monitoring the situation. And analysts fear that a northern front against Israel could ignite if the conflict escalates further. At the same time, US naval assets in the region, including aircraft carriers and destroyers stationed in the Arabian Sea and Persian Gulf, have reportedly begun repositioning in anticipation of potential missile or drone retaliation. Military analysts note that Iran possesses an extensive arsenal of ballistic missiles and armed drones capable of reaching US bases throughout the Middle East, as well as Israeli cities. The risk now is not simply a localized exchange of strikes, but a cascading chain reaction that could pull multiple countries into open confrontation. Oil traders are already reacting nervously, with markets watching every development in the Gulf. Even the hint of disruption to shipping lanes through Hormuz can send prices surging, and governments across Europe and Asia are quietly preparing contingency plans in case energy flows are interrupted. China and India, both heavily dependent on Gulf oil shipments, are closely monitoring the situation, while Russia has called for immediate restraint, warning that further escalation could destabilize the entire global security environment. In Washington, policymakers face a delicate balancing act. On one hand, the United States has long pledged to defend Israel and protect the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. On the other hand, a full-scale war with Iran would carry enormous risks, potentially drawing American forces into a prolonged regional conflict at a time when global tensions are already high due to ongoing crises in Eastern Europe and Asia. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels are reportedly working around the clock as Gulf states attempt to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar understand that a major war between Iran and Israel would place their own cities, infrastructure, and economies directly in the line of fire. These nations have spent years trying to stabilize relations with Tehran, and now they find themselves caught between competing security interests and the looming specter of regional war. The most alarming factor in this crisis is the speed at which events could escalate. Modern warfare in the Middle East is no longer limited to traditional armies facing off across borders. Instead, it involves cyber operations, drone swarms, proxy militias, missile strikes, and covert intelligence battles unfolding simultaneously across multiple countries. One miscalculation, a missile striking the wrong target, a naval confrontation escalating out of control, or a retaliatory strike causing unexpected casualties could ignite a chain reaction that would be extremely difficult to contain. Meanwhile, millions of ordinary people across the region are watching these developments with growing anxiety, knowing that geopolitical chess games often translate into real consequences on the ground. From disrupted economies to potential military conflict, the coming hours and days will be critical. Will Iran choose direct retaliation against Israeli or American targets, or will it rely on proxy groups to strike indirectly? Will the Strait of Hormuz remain open, or will tensions push the region toward a dangerous maritime standoff? And perhaps most importantly, will world leaders find a path to de-escalation before the crisis transforms into a wider regional war that could reshape the geopolitical landscape for years to come? For now, the world is watching the Middle East with intense focus, as every movement of ships, aircraft, and missiles in the region could signal the next chapter in a rapidly unfolding crisis that has already begun to reverberate far beyond the Gulf.